Pokemon fans, Tamashii here. It's been a while since I've done a top 10 list, huh? Well, I figured why not come back by tackling one of your biggest requests, my top 10 gym leaders. Pokemon has always been a character-heavy series, both human and Pokemon-wise, so it can be tough sometimes for characters to stand out, especially when every game has its own set of gym leaders. But there are a few that stick out more in my memory than others. Let's get started to find out who and why. Number 10, Bugsy. Kicking off the list at number 10 is the androgynous Johto native Bugsy. I often get asked what my favorite type of Pokemon is, and it happens to be Bug. Of all the Bug-type gyms over the years, I think Bugsy's is my favorite, though Burgh's comes a close second. Why? Well, it's pretty rare that a trainer leads with Metapod and still ends up kicking your ass. Bugsy's Scyther is the real star of the show, and if you pick Chikorita or even Totodile as your starter, it can be hard to take it out quickly before Fury Cutter has a chance to build up some power. Catching a rock type in Union Cave becomes an absolute must. For repping my favorite type and doing it in style, I gotta give Bugsy a spot on my list. Number 9, Blaine. Blaine is interesting for a number of reasons. He's got a long history on Cinnabar Island, and apparently he was quite close to Mr. Fuji. Some speculate that he and Mr. Fuji were behind the creation of Mewtwo, but usually these theories involve cross-canonization with the manga and anime, so I don't put all that much stock in them myself. They're interesting to think about, but the only evidence of this in the games itself is a single photo on Cinnabar Island's lab, which isn't quite enough for me to buy it. Blaine is also the only gym leader ever to have his entire gym relocate, and his signature battle cry has been printed on everything from t-shirts to bumper stickers at this point. I think though what makes him the most memorable to me is his gym's design. As a kid, knowing more about Pokemon than your friends made you the cool kid on the block. And I love that Blaine's gym tested your Pokemon knowledge along with your actual skill. Clement's gym in X and Y does something similar, but unlike the Gen 1 games, I'll never get to play it at an age where the gym questions would actually be challenging for me. I don't get the same "ha, I knew that" feeling as I got in Blaine's gym as a kid, and for that reason Blaine wins out, if only just because of good timing. Number 8, Tate and Liza. In my experience, most gym leaders are only tough if you don't have quite the right combination of team members to tackle them with. And most gyms with this difficulty curve appear early enough in the game that you can easily augment your team and raise new party members up quickly enough to take them out. Tate and Liza are the only gym leaders I remember consistently having trouble with. I played through Gen 3 with possibly hundreds of different party members over the years, and not one of them made the battle with Tate and Liza super easy. Some worked way better than others, but by the time you reach Moss Deep City, there isn't a lot of opportunity left to catch and raise new team members. So if your party isn't up to snuff by then, there's not a lot you can do about it but struggle onwards. Not only are Tate and Liza difficult to battle, reaching them was more of a challenge than pretty much any other gym in Pokemon history, with long puzzles and a record number of battleable trainers. You're battling them in Oris. Unfortunately, they didn't hold up to my memories of how difficult they were, but at the very least, they're still completely unique from every other gym leader out there. With double battles being new to Gen 3, it was only fitting that there be a gym that celebrated that. And what better way to do it than with a pair of telepathic twins? In the real world, identical twins often become so close to one another that they can finish each other's sentences. Tate and Liza take that to the next level by literally psychically communicating with each other, and it's the perfect concept for a double battling duo. For creativity and challenge, Tate and Liza stand out as two of my favorites. Number 7, Roxy. As with most gym leaders in Unova, Roxy is more interesting for her story than for the battle itself. She's a member of a rock band that performs in her gym, and also the gym leader. Her father is the captain of a ferry that goes from Burbank to the mainland, but much like his daughter splits her responsibilities, he also aspires to be an actor at Pokestar Studios. Unfortunately, he's not quite as good at balancing his two passions, and Roxy gets frustrated with him neglecting his duties as captain. He argues that if she can balance her duties between two things she loves, why can't he? One of the weirder things about growing up is worrying about your parents and looking after them, and the way Roxy looks after her dad is a good example of that. It's a role reversal that can be hard to deal with sometimes, which makes Roxy kinda relatable. But at the same time, whether she worries about him or not, he figures out for himself what to do, and Roxy learns to let go and let him do what he wants, sort of. It's a cute story, and to me, it makes Roxy stand out even more than that catchy tune of hers. Number 6, Sharon. I got to talk about Bianca in my top 10 Pokegirls video, so now let's talk about Sharon. Where Bianca represented the truth and was able to be realistic about her capabilities, Sharon represents ideals. And in spite of never besting the player as a rival, he never gives up and keeps trying, even to the point of frustration. Even at the very end of Black and White 1, he waits for you to battle him every single day, with the hope that someday he'll win. This makes him a little bit more of an archetypal rival on his own, but it's his contrast to Bianca that really makes him feel whole and stand out. For this reason, the fact that he becomes a gym leader makes his conclusion all the more satisfying. Bianca saw a path that would make her happier than battling, so she took it. Sharon stayed on the same path no matter what, and it still ultimately led him to something that makes him happy in the end too. The sad thing is that in spite of being such good friends at the beginning of Black and White 1, By the start of Black and White 2, Bianca and Sharon don't seem to have stayed in touch, in spite of living in the same city, simply because their paths took them different ways in life. Man, did Black and White 2 come out at a perfect time for me to be starting college or what? Sometimes following your dreams does mean you'll drift away from people you used to be close to, but your ambitions will expose you to many more people and ideas to help you grow, and you and your old friends can still be happy even if you're not close anymore. Sharon and Bianca went down two very different paths, but both still ended up right where they needed to be. Number 5. Watson. Much like Tate and Liza, Watson was one I struggled with quite a bit as a kid. And apparently I wasn't the only one, as making it impossible to get Aaron early in the game in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was something I heard complaints about from people who needed a ground type to help deal with him. Watson was the first electric type gym leader to make an appearance since Magnemite and Magneton were given steel typing. Well, the first one in the early game anyway, and that definitely made him harder to take down than other early gym leaders of the past. Steel doesn't have many weaknesses, or even types it doesn't resist, and with the electric typing to deal with as well, it's a hard combo to take on without the right team. Watson was always a milestone for me no matter how many times I played through Ruby and Sapphire, and no matter what team I used, because whether or not we struggled with Watson was always a test. If it was easy, then the rest of the game would be no problem. If it was hard, well, I knew I'd have to grind quite a bit more or make some changes. Watson himself is pretty interesting too. As the sole founder of Mauville City, he once had plans to expand the city in an area called New Mauville. That project was long abandoned though, and even in the remake he never explains why. I wonder what stopped him. Number 4. Drayden. Coming in at number 4 is the man with the facial hair, Drayden. In Black and White 2, Drayden not only plays an important role in the story, but he provides a unique perspective that no one else in the Unova region has. The Generation 5 Pokemon games were hugely introspective, in a way no other game before or since in the series has been. They challenge players to think critically about the series they loved and grew up with, and though they're not perfect games, they're some of my favorites for this reason. And I feel like I'm never going to be able to say everything I have to say about them simply because there's just so much to think about. Drayden knowing what a time before Pokeballs was like makes him a link between the two sides of the story. He feels that Pokemon and humans belong side by side, but at the same time he can't defend the use of Pokeballs either. And again, that was all about showing how things aren't so black and white. This is a valuable point of view, and it makes him not only interesting as a character, but it also helps support the game's major themes. Though Drayden isn't particularly memorable as a gym leader, as a character he has valuable insight into Unova's past, so I gotta give him his dues and give him a spot on this list. Number 3. Fantina. Fantina is fabulous, and I bet you're surprised to see me put a Pseudo Gym Leader on this list. It's true though, I can't deny how much I love her. In English versions of the game, she speaks broken English with French mixed in. In Japanese versions of the game, she speaks broken Japanese with English mixed in. And in French, she speaks broken French with English mixed in. In every place, she's meant to be a foreigner. To native speakers, hearing another person try and speak their language and making mistakes is cute, and we tend to underestimate their intelligence because they have trouble communicating. But learning other languages is actually really hard. I've studied 2 years of both French and Japanese, and I'm still garbage at both of them. It takes a lot of dedication and brainpower to learn another language and use it properly. So even if Fantina makes mistakes, you know she's smart and hardworking just being able to speak as well as she does. And if that wasn't enough, her gym is filled with math puzzles. As someone with awful instant recall, math has always been a struggle for me, so I admire people who have a knack for it, even if the math puzzles in her gym are still pretty simple. Fantina might be charming and cute to native speakers, but don't underestimate her. She's probably the smartest gym leader in all of Sinnoh. Number 2. Elisa. Though obviously I couldn't have a list of just all Unova gym leaders, Gen 5 really went out of its way to give each one a personality and a story of their own, and Elisa's happens to tie in with another character I'm quite fond of, Bianca. When Bianca reaches Nimbasa City, her dad finds her and tries to convince her to give up being a trainer and come home. Bianca isn't the most eloquent speaker, so when she seems to be having trouble confronting her dad, Elisa steps in and has her back. She has faith in Bianca, as a person and as a trainer, even when her own father doubts her, and she gives Bianca the courage to stand up to him. It's a great moment in the game not only for Bianca, but also for Elisa. It would have been easy to write Elisa off as just another stop on the road to the Elite Four, but this scene with Bianca humanizes her. It shows her compassion for others and gives her dignity. Gen 5 does this with almost all the gym leaders, but I feel like this scene in particular is a shining example of how to inform a character well in a short amount of time. In past Pokemon games, gym leaders were little more than boss battles, and aside from 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, they didn't have a lot of chance to let their personality shine through. But this tiny little scene with Bianca manages to build up 3 different characters: Bianca, Bianca's father, and Elisa. Bianca's father might be in the wrong ultimately, but he just cares about his daughter and doesn't want her to get hurt. Bianca might not be great at battling, but she just wants to continue on her journey so she can learn. And Elisa empathizes with strangers and stands up for those in need. It really shows how far Pokemon games have come when it comes to telling stories. Just a fantastic moment in a flawed but still fantastic generation of Pokemon games. And also, that Emolga. And last but not least, my #1 favorite gym leader is Roxanne. Admittedly, Roxanne I like a little more based on design than anything about her as an actual person. Roxanne is just adorable. I love her Odongo, I love her dress and red stockings, I love that she just so happens to have a nose pass right at the beginning of the game like it's no big deal, which is kind of a rare Pokemon in the Hoenn region and also one of my personal favorites. She's just so cute, and I feel like this is an anomaly in a list of gym leaders that have great backstories or tough battles or cool concepts, but sometimes all you need to make a memorable character is a kick-ass design and a cool Pokemon. Is that shallow of me? So there you have it, my top 10 gym leaders in Pokemon. If you missed my previous announcement, I have a brand new design in my TeePublic store, which is a Swadloon and a Pikachu hoodie. Please check it out using the link in the video description. If you want to see my top favorite Pokemon of each type, you can click here, or if you want to see my latest Q&A video, you can click here. As always, don't forget to click here to subscribe for more Pokemon videos every week. See ya!